Hey everybody, today we're working on a 2008 350Z and it's set up to do endurance racing, 24-hour racing in the ChampCar Endurance Series. This is two brothers racing, and what they were running into is it was slipping in fifth gear and it had a code PO735 gear ratio error in fifth. Okay, now there's only one track that they race at where they even have to use fifth gear, so this thing is, it's held up a long time, but as I said in other videos about these things, it's kind of hard on them to shift 4 or 5 at full throttle. So if you have one of these, there's a couple things we could do to make it better, but the best bet is just to lift a little bit, get that shift, and then get back into it. They end up holding up a lot better. Also, in this band servo, we're going to put one out of a Titan in here. So it's a bigger servo, it's more apply area, which is going to result in more clamping force on the band, kind of like putting in, better brake calipers with bigger pistons or a bigger piston master cylinder. So hydraulically, it's going to apply more force. So let's get into it. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at this servo. So we got to compress this ring. And push it on out. All right, so this is what puts your band on for fifth gear. And oh, look, see this? That whole seal is just falling out. So that certainly would explain why the band is burnt. Obviously, this isn't sealing too much. I'll just put a piece of rubber on and send it back. No. All right, this is kind of something I wanted to show. I don't have the Titan one here, so I can't tell you what the bigger one measures. Maybe in a better or a later video I could get into the differences. But it looks like we have about 1 inch 363. Okay, so the bigger you go with this servo, the more surface area. So if you calculate the area of a circle, which is radius times pi r square, you could actually determine what percentage bigger you're gonna get for your servo. And hopefully we'll get an aftermarket one made one day that's even bigger than the Titan deal. But for now, this is what we have to live with. And also, if you put a bigger servo, you also have to put this bigger cup. All right, so it's 2 pieces. And from the dealer, these things are about $100 each. And it doesn't even come with the pin. It's just this little piston and the housing. But that all said, let's see what else we got wrong here. And obviously, I took the valve body out before we started the video. We have that in other videos, and I didn't want to keep boring you guys. As long as we can get lucky and shoot all this out. There we go. We got lucky. That's lucky too, actually, because if this drum is stuck on the pump, which sometimes happens, it's because this one-way clutch in here, which it looks a little hammered, actually. But a lot of times, I don't know if you could see on the leading edge of these, it's kind of worn. But when these really wipe out, these two pieces kind of get welded together. And you got to change the pump and that drum. And as expected, this band is leveled. These little rivets are sticking out now. And that results in giving this a pretty unpleasant texture. Obviously, this whole drum is going to be a paperweight. And when you get replacement ones, they're going to want a tooth count, right? Because they use these transmissions in a few different things, and there's different ratios, etc. We have a couple planetaries. Sun gear, and this also has a one-way clutch. Turns in one direction and it locks in the other. Okay, this is your high-low reverse clutch. Called that because it's on and high, low, and reverse. Those are starting to go. You can see there's like little hot spots forming. You know, this probably wasn't causing an operational problem, but it's certainly on the way out. And in our other videos, I show kind of the extra clutch setups. Maybe I'll link it in the description. But we go from 4 clutches, sometimes we get at least 6 and sometimes 7 in there. Another area of concern is down in here. We could get grooves where these rings here ride. Okay, this one's okay. Some guys get rid of these Teflon rings here, and what they do is they put a like a chrome-plated steel ring, and I don't know if that's out of a Ford 4R70W or a Chrysler 604, one of the two, but they're rings that are out of another transmission. I don't see the advantage, and I don't see the reason to do it, but you know, some guys think it's better. Now we have a direct clutch drum, and this is also something that we could upgrade quite a lot. And as you can see, they're starting to get a little dark. Like for example, this clutch you can see is a little bit lighter than these other ones. So sometimes what you have is the top of a clutch doesn't burn too much, but the bottom burns more. And all the way on the other side of it, you have the same effect. And also in this particular model, which you don't have in all of them by any means, there's like a little cushion in this bottom pressure plate. Next are your reverse clutches. And with them, there's a little cushion that needs to go back out, back in. Give me a pause. All right, let's get this out of the way. This is your input clutch. So what I do is I just put something on there which holds this drum, because when you release this outer snap ring, this stuff should come down. And if you've seen any other videos that are related to these Jatco units, I tell you how much of a ball buster this can be. We always hope we get lucky. Lucky sometimes means you're just doing it a long time and you know how to do it. Another planetary. Bearing race here. A bearing that rides on said bearing race. This, which is out of a Ford Overdrive. And these are your input clutches. And oftentimes these things are damaged. This seems to be one of the weak links that goes bad first. But overall, I mean, other than this band, we have what seems to be a fairly clean unit here. Yeah, as you can see, they're starting to burn a little bit. And we have the same deal, where this is not burnt. The other side is burnt. And we have the same thing on top, probably. Yeah, one side's a little more burnt than the other. But again, this thing's not, it's not torched. Maybe if we go back together with this, I'll show you the extra clutch setups again. But I'm going to link that in the description. So I have a whole video on just what we do to get all these extra clutches in when we do our performance builds, which is really helpful as far as enabling you to handle more power. So, some more stuff in here to take out. So we have a real thin snap ring. They make an aftermarket one that's a little thicker that supposedly keeps them from popping out of the case. But I really can't say that I've ever seen one pop out of the case. So this is the setup here. That, what we call a little slinky return spring. And under here we have a couple more things. Another Torrington bearing. And we have a piston in here that needs to come out. And I'm just being a little lazy. It's actually easier if you have the long needle noses to grab it with that. Now the neck snap ring in here is really a pain in the ass, but let's see if we can get it out easily. You know what, I'm going to take the back of this thing off so we could stand it up to get that. It has to come off anyway. And as in Nissan tradition, they Loctite some bolts and other bolts they don't. Which I don't know the rhyme or reason, but you'll hear when I take some of them out, they seem a little tighter than others. Why they feel you need Loctite on this bolt, but not on the one next to it, I can't really tell you. And at the factory, they don't really use a gasket most of the time. They use like a flange sealant on here, so it's kind of it's almost like red Loctite, but thicker. It kind of sticks stuff on. Okay. We have a little piece here that's part of your park mechanism. This is some of your other things related to parking pole and its return spring. Under here we have a bearing and a bearing race. Output shaft and a parking gear. And it's more than just a parking gear, because as it passes this sensor, it gives your computer an indication of vehicle speed. We also have another Torrington bearing. So what I'm going to do next is get rid of this sensor so when I stand it up, I don't break it. That seemed pretty damn loose. I wonder if somebody was messing with this. And if you look at these wires, you have three wires. You have a signal wire, a ground, and a return wire. And what they do is to lower the chance of having electromagnetic interference, they twist the wires together. So I guess it cancels interference in a sense. Now in the support, we got 3 bolts. Hopefully this gun will have the nads to take them out. Middle one's easier to grab with a magnet. Okay. So if we could stand it up, we could see they got a heavy snap ring where the opening is at 6 o'clock in the case. Sometimes this isn't too bad, and sometimes it puts up a fight. I'm going to call this one not too bad. So this snap ring, if you look at it, it kind of has a taper, right? And the backside of it is flat. So when you put it back in, again, it's 6 o'clock, and the taper is going to face up for those of you that do this themselves. And you got to kind of rock this and get it out perfectly because it's a real tight fit and just jam in there. And this is interesting too. Jatco makes a lot of transmissions with the same setup, namely a Subaru 5EAT, the RE5s, the 7-speed rear-wheel drive Nissans, the RE7s, and you have some different setups back here. This one's going to take a bearing, but some of them are going to have a big washer here, but we don't need that in this particular application. So underneath this we have another one-way clutch. All right, so your forward clutch is grabbed here, and you have a set of coast clutches. So what the function of those are is when you pull that shifter down from 5th, these clutches come on, and it's going to provide you with engine braking. In other words, it keeps it from overrunning. And this sits down here in the back of the case. So now we have 2 more sets of clutches in here. First set has a snap ring. Also, there's a cushion here, right? So when this goes in, the cushion goes down and up against here. And if you ever get lost with how something goes in a transmission, we call these witness marks. So if you look in here on this very edge, it kind of becomes obvious that this high edge was riding against here. So if you're ever unsure of something, sometimes you could just use a little logic to put it back together. The second set of clutches doesn't have a snap ring, so we could just pull them right out. And these coast clutches and the low clutches, or forward clutches is what I call them, they're very rarely damaged. You know, when we build stuff here, we change all the clutches, but they're not bad to begin with in this case. All right, so this is sort of what we have. This unit's in pretty good shape. We have a different valve body in it. The customer had a valve body that was from another shop, and it had a Transgo shift kit in it, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with them really, but what he was running into is when they were in a corner and it shifted, sometimes it would spin the tire. So he asked me if I could make the shifts a little bit softer so they didn't break traction. You know, this is kind of a road race course that they run this thing on. So we're going to do that, upgrade the band, upgrade the clutch packs, upgrade the servo, and he should be good for many years with this thing. That's all I got for you. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.